Hello there. A real beauty the Tangara is, isn't it? Very different to the colony's first train that I, William Sixsmith, how'd you do, drove from Sydney to Parramatta back in 1855. The first government-owned railway in the world, you know. Great public rejoicing there was. Everyone got dressed up like toffs, we did, myself included. Yet the first train service was not the only important transport milestone. Oh no. Yeah. Come with me and I'll treat you to the deeds of those who built the transport system in New South Wales. All aboard! Well now, just 11 years after Captain Phillip established the colony, one of the first regular public transport services was on what one might call a ferry between Sydney and Parramatta. Muscle and sail power was in time replaced by steam, and the oars took on a new form on the giant paddle steamer that operated between Circular Quay and Manly. The private operating companies, that is prior to the opening of Sydney Harbour Bridge, reached a level of 40 million passengers a year with some 51 vessels. Oh, just excuse me a moment, I must check the pressure gauge. Ah, all's well. Anyway, the horse, dear old Dobbin, was the backbone of early land transport, from horse carriage to horse-drawn tram. For heavy transport, the bullock wagon held sway. Horse-drawn travel, you see, was too slow for the growing settlement and could sometimes present an unexpected hazard. All right, bail up. From Great Britain came reports of the successful introduction of locomotives as a desirable means of land, passenger and goods transport. Rail transport was readily adopted in New South Wales, and just 30 years after my inaugural service, almost 100 stations were in constant use along 3,000 kilometres of track. Crossing the almost impassable Blue Mountains was achieved by constructing the great zigzag rail track. It was a world engineering marvel of the era in the late 1800s. Passenger benefits like, well, discounted weekend excursion travel were introduced, and in the Sydney area, workers' weekly train tickets. From the last century, the railways has been the largest freighter of coal, such as used for the generation of electricity. You know, the railways were in fact a major producer of electricity, providing power for old towns, Lithgow being the first. Ah, signal coming up. Before electric train services, railway electricity powered a vast fleet of trams and sprinkling of trolley buses, which for 100 years formed the nucleus of Sydney's street transport network. Right from the beginning, interstate rivalry and jealousy spawned different rail gauges. Customs and smallpox inspection made interstate travel like visiting a foreign country, it did. Sir Henry Parkes, the then Premier, signed the agreement for a dual-gauge connection with Victoria, which led the way for Australia's first long-distance train, the Sydney Express. Its style had the international touch of the great trains of Europe and America. Opening of the Hawkesbury River Bridge completed the rail link between Brisbane in the north and Melbourne and Adelaide in the south. All accessed through Sydney Station, which, of course, is commonly known as Central. Oh, looks like time to fill up with coal and water. In 1926, the first electric train service commenced operating between Oakley and Central. Opening of the largest single-arch span bridge in the world across Sydney Harbour, integrated the bridge with the underground City Rail, linked the city with the northern suburbs, and heralded the complete electrification of the then suburban rail system. Within a few years, the building of Circular Quay station forged the final link in the City Circle line. In the country, meanwhile, the Silver City Comet became the first air-conditioned diesel-powered train in the British Commonwealth and is still providing a service to the harsh outback of New South Wales. Back in Sydney, diesel buses eventually replaced trams as street transport. You see, the government acquired the private ferry companies and in time launched new craft into service. Sleek little beauties, aren't they? Rail gauges between states were standardised and State Rail continued to introduce new services. Oh, hello. Tunnel coming up. The Intercity XPT, holder of the Australian Rail Speed Record. Oh, what a winner. A few years ago, government transport services were amalgamated with obvious benefits.
Buses and ferries and trains, the more you use us, the better we get.
The public transport system of New South Wales is a trust for the people, with an ongoing commitment to comfort, low cost and efficient services. The pioneering spirit demonstrated during the last 2 centuries will confidently launch these services way into the future. Next stop, Sydney Station. Right on time. Well, most obliged to have you aboard today, so please move to your right of the station on your way out. Thank you.